Hello, welcome to our first homework help. Here we go. So, this is number 3 on your homework. So you have to identify if it's linear or exponential, and you have to write a recursive and an explicit equation. So, first things first. Is it linear or is it exponential? Well, I'm going up from 10 to 15 to 20 to 25. So I am adding 5. Right? Okay, so that means we're adding the same thing each time, it's linear. All right? Then our common difference, we're adding 5. All right, knowing that information only, you can write your recursive equation. Oh, I forgot to make you do something in class. Huh. When you write your recursive equation, you should always write what you start with. So what's the first thing they give you? They give me x equals 2, y equals 10. This is for recursive. So you should always say where you start. So f of 2 equals 10. That's just you took information from the table. When x equals 2, f of x is 10. All right, that's where we start. And then you can write your actual equation. You need to come this way. So you have f of x equals previous term, f of x minus 1, and then what are we doing each time? What is our common difference? We're adding 5. Okay, that's the recursive. Okay. Then you have explicit. So remember, for linear, the most common equation is y equals mx plus b. Yes, b. Ta-da. Okay? Where, let's go up here, m equals your slope. And remember, slope is the change in the y over the change in the x. 1 second. You need to come this way a little bit. Okay. Or you might have learned that slope is rise over run. Slope is also thought of as rise over run. Or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. However you want to think of it, it doesn't matter. See, this is like y2 minus y1, that's the change in the y. x2 minus x1, change in the x. Okay, so I would say these are the most, probably the most common. But if you think of it as rise over run, that's fine too. Okay. Oh boy. So however you want to think about it. So for this set of points or whatever, my change in y is 5. So m equals the change in y, which is 5, over the change in the x. Because your change in x is not always going to be 1. But for now it is. From 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, I'm just adding 1. Right? Just adding 1 each time. So then 5 over 1 is just 5. Okay? So m is equal to 5. Now to find your b. Okay, if you despise the way I showed you in class, another way to find the b is to do the pattern, well, to go backwards. So, because the y-intercept is when x equals 0, right? So I have x and I have f of x. You still see that? Well, there we go. So when x equals 0, what's y? So you can also just do the pattern backwards. The problem with this way is it's not always going to be easy. Because sometimes maybe they'll start you out at x equals 6, and so then doing the pattern backwards takes some time. So we've been adding 5. So when x equals 2, y equals 10. So when x equals 1, what would fit our pattern? 5. Because 5 plus 5 is 10. But that's when x equals 1. When x equals 0, so let's say you're going to subtract 5. So 0, because 0 plus 5. So that fits our pattern. So that's another way to do it, if that makes sense. Like I said, the only problem is it won't always be easy to do it that way. Okay. We're going to erase that now, because now we're going to do it the way we did in class. Okay. Okay. The way we did in class. So I just like to start with my first x value, so I'm going to take my first x value, 2, multiply it by your slope, which is blue. So 2 times 5, that equals 10. So when x is 2, oh, this is an easy one. All right, well, when x is 2, y is 10. Look, that's already correct. So we don't have to make any adjustments. Let's make sure. When x is 3, multiply by your slope. Is that correct? When x is 3, is y 15? Well, let's look at our table. When x is 3, y is 15. Yep, I don't have to add or subtract anything on to change it. We'll try one more. Oh, sorry. That would be 4. When x equals 4, multiply it by your slope, which is 5. Equals 20. So when x is 4, is y 20? X is 4, y is 20, yes. So I don't have to add or subtract anything. That means your y-intercept is 0. So when we go to write our equation, we have y equals your slope, 5, x, and then we're not adding or subtracting anything. So really your y-intercept is 0. So if you want, you can write plus 0, but that doesn't do anything. It doesn't change. So you can just leave it off. So your equation is just y equals 5x. That's number 3. And we're back with number 5. So first things first, is it linear or exponential? Well, let's see. I'm going from 0 to 9 to 18 to 27. So I'm adding 9 each time. Plus 9, plus 9, plus 9. Perfect. So then if I'm adding the same thing each time, it's linear. Ta-da! Now, with only knowing this information, you can write your recursive formula. So remember, identify where you start. So when x equals 3, so you f of 3 equals 0, So I just take the first point they give me and fill in 3, 0, 3, 0. And then you do a little semicolon. And then you get to write your actual equation. So f of x equals f of x minus 1. And then what's your pattern? What you doing each time? What's your common difference? It's 9. Boom. And that's your recursive equation. All right. And then you have explicit. Y equals mx plus b. Okay. We already can figure out the slope. Remember, slope is change in the y over the change in the x. Change in y. Here, m equals change in y over change in x. Change in the y. We're going up by 9. The y's are changing by 9 each time. Change in the x. 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. We're just going up by 1 again. Plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. So 9 over 1. 9 divided by 1 is just 9. So m equals 9. Okay. Now, never mind. Now you have to find b. So if we're filling in our equation as we go, we now have y equals 9 x plus b. Okay? You still need to figure out what b is. What is b? I'm going to erase this. So remember, you can always take your x value, so 3. Oh, I need green, huh? Keep my slope the same color. So I'm going to take 3. I'm going to multiply it by my slope, which is 9. And that equals 3 times 9 is 27. Sorry, I didn't do these problems ahead of time, so I'm making sure I'm not making a mistake. Okay. But when x equals 3, y needs to be 0. So I'm going to add or subtract in order for it to equal 0. So what am I going to add or subtract to get 27 to 0? You subtract 27. 27 minus 27 is 0. Let's see if this is our magic number. Let's see if this is our b. We're going to try again. So you can take your next x value, 4, multiply by your slope. 4 times 9, 36. But we need this when x is 4, y should be 9. Okay? So what do I have to add or subtract? I mean, we're going from a larger number to a smaller number, so we're going to subtract. 36 minus some number equals 9. 27. Okay, so it's looking like this is our magic number. If you want, you can try one more. So take x equals 5, multiply by your slope. 9 times 5 is 45. But when x equals 5, y should be 18. So what are we doing? Once again, we're going from 45 to 18, so we're going to subtract. 45 minus 27 equals 18. So that is, in fact, our magic number. So you can go ahead and fill that in your equation. And it's negative 27. So that would be your final answer. Okay. I'm going back to number 2. We're doing number 2. So first things first, is it linear or exponential? Well, let's look. 14 to 28 to 56 to 112. Geez. Well, what am I doing? I'm multiplying by 2 times 2 times 2. Okay. If I'm multiplying by the same number, it's exponential. Exponential. Hooray. All right. So then, just knowing that information, you can go ahead and write your recursive equation. Exponentials have, so our linears all had a common difference. These guys have a constant rate. And that is 2. We're multiplying by 2 each time. So then for your recursive, start out writing it the same way. F of x equals f x minus 1. And then what are we doing each time? We're multiplying by 2 times 2. You can write it like that. You could write it at the front. 2 times f of x minus 1. Or you can write it like that. Either one. You'll see it both ways. I like that way, but it doesn't matter. They mean the same thing. So that's your recursive equation. Either one. Okay, explicit. So we'll go over this in class tomorrow, but if you want to be ahead of the game, explicit for exponentials. Your exponential equation is, you can use y or f of x, it doesn't matter. I guess I'll write it both ways. So y equals ab raised to the x power. Or if you write it f of x, it could be f of x equals ab to the x power. So you can pick. You can either write it with f of x or you can write it with y. They mean the same thing. Okay. So you have to think back to exponentials. A is your y-intercept. B is your constant rate or ratio or whatever you want to call it. Ratio / rate. That was bad handwriting. Ratio, that's really bad handwriting. Hold on. I'll write that a little bigger. Is your ratio / your constant rate. Okay. So, for exponentials, you can actually write your explicit equation 2 different ways. You can either use the first term, which they give you, or you can find the y-intercept and use that term. If you use the first term, using first term. Your equation would be y or f of x equals your first term, which is 14, times your ratio rate, which is 2. Because you're using the first term, x minus 1. You have to raise it to the x minus 1 power because you're using the first term. If you're using the second term, which is 28, it would be x minus 2. I mean, don't do that. I wouldn't use the second term unless they don't give you the first term. But if you use the second term, which is 28, then it's x minus 2. Right? But let's use the first term, which is 14. Okay, so that's one way you could write it. That is a correct answer. Or you could find the y-intercept. Once again, a couple different ways to do it. I think, okay, I would do it where you do the pattern backwards. So when x is 0, that's our y-intercept. What is y? When x is 0, what is y? So what would fit our pattern? So I'm going from 0 to 1. So what multiplied by 2 gives me 14? What multiplied by 2 gives me 14? 7. Right, that fits our pattern. That fits our pattern, 7 times 2. Okay, so then you can also write the equation. Use the y-intercept, which is 7, and then times your ratio, and then you just raise it to the x power. Not the x minus 1. Technically, this is the x minus 0 power for the 0th term. This is the first term, okay? But minus 0 doesn't do anything, so we leave it off. So it's 7 times your ratio or your rate raised to the x power. Sorry, I was using the first term. This is using y-intercept. Okay, using the y-intercept, which is also called the 0th term because x is 0. Okay, so either equation is fine. Okay, we're switching into the distributive part of the homework. So this is number 12. So I have 3a divided by 5 times the quantity 15a minus 10. So I like to go one step at a time. So first I'm going to divide everything in my parentheses by 5. That'll get rid of this guy. Okay, so I'm dividing everything in my parentheses by 5. So it leaves me with 3a. 15a divided by 5, 3a. And then negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. Don't forget about your negative sign. All right. And then now you just distribute normally. Okay. So 3a times 3a, 9a squared, because you're multiplying two a's. So it's squared. And then 3a times negative 2. And that would be your answer. Ta-da! Okay, and the last one I'll do is number 14, just for some little extra practice with distributing. Negative 2z times the quantity 3z plus 12. So I'm going to distribute, multiply what's outside by what's inside. Negative 2z times 3z. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. And then z times z squared. negative 2z times 12. A negative times a positive is a negative, negative 24z. There you go.